Have you ever wondered, what if the words you wrote began to hate the world for you? What if every line in your manuscript carried rage, envy, and something darker? What happens when a writer realizes his greatest creation is also his greatest curse? Can a man destroy a manuscript before it destroys his soul? And what if the devil was never in the pages, but in the mind that wrote them? Welcome to Classic Storytime Hub. This is The Devil in Manuscript by Nathaniel Hawthorne, a reimagined and retold classic horror tale in English.
The night I arrived, December had wrapped the city in cruelty. I came in by the late mail, stepping into a large town where an old friend of mine was staying, a brilliant, restless mind, one of those young men who swear they study law while secretly devoting their souls to poetry, philosophy, and dreams far too large for courtrooms. The moment I finished a hurried supper, I felt an urgent pull to see him. I made my way straight to the office of his renowned legal mentor, where he was said to be working late. Outside, the cold was merciless. The sky was sharp and star-filled, but the air cut like glass. Shop windows along the street were clouded with frost, their warm lights blurred and distant, as if trapped behind ice. Carriages thundered past, their wheels roaring just as fiercely on frozen dirt as on solid stone. There was no snow, none on the streets, none on the rooftops, only naked cold and relentless wind. That wind, it was a living thing. It slammed into me with such force that I barely needed to walk. I spread my cloak wide like a sail, and the gale carried me forward at reckless speed, while other unfortunate pedestrians leaned into the storm, fighting for every step. I shot past them like a ship running before the wind. One poor soul I nearly knocked over entirely, but I was already gone, swept ahead on the storm's breath before he could shout a single curse. Then, suddenly, warmth. In an instant, the fury of the night was shut away, and we were seated beside a roaring fire so bright and inviting it stirred a foolish urge in me to stretch out and sink into the glowing coals themselves. The contrast was intoxicating. The office around us bore all the familiar marks of the legal profession: shelves packed tightly with thick, worn volumes bound in sheepskin, desks buried beneath writs, summonses, and endless official papers. Yet something felt different. Scattered among the instruments of law were quiet signs of neglect, of freedom. Nothing suggested that clients might burst in unannounced, nor that the distinguished counselor himself would return at any moment. In truth, he was far away, attending court in another town. For the night, at least, the office belonged not to law, but to thought, firelight, and whatever restless ideas might soon emerge from the shadows. A tall glass bottle stood at the center of the table, narrow at the neck and heavy at the base, flanked by two untouched tumblers. Beside it lay a disorderly stack of manuscripts, pages stained with ink, crossed out, rewritten, abused. They looked nothing like legal papers. No seal, no structure, no authority. Just thoughts spilled violently onto the page. My friend, whom I will call Oberon, a name we had invented long ago, stared at that pile as though it might move if left unwatched. There was something uneasy in his expression, a tension that hadn't been there before. At times, I almost I could believe, if I allowed myself, that there is a devil trapped inside those pages. I had read them. I knew exactly what he meant. You remember the idea, he went on, his voice tight, that creature I tried to shape from old legends and forbidden records, the fiend whispered about in witch trials and forgotten texts. I built him thought by thought, line by line. And now, he hesitated, eyes fixed on the manuscripts. Now I can barely stand to look at what came out of my own mind.
It feels too real, as if the idea took on weight, substance. I wish they were gone, burned, buried, erased from sight. And from mine as well, I thought, but kept silent. You recall, Oberon continued, leaning forward, how that infernal being fed on the happiness of others, how one small, almost harmless surrender was enough to place a soul within his reach. That's exactly what's happened to me. My peace is gone, and those pages are the reason. He turned to me suddenly. Tell me, haven't you felt it too? Something draining, something subtle but persistent. Nothing at all, unless the curse works by tempting its reader to abandon reason and become a novelist after enjoying your stories. For a moment, Oberon almost smiled. Almost.
A novelist? Oberon echoed, the word striking him like an accusation. His laugh came out sharp, almost nervous. Then the devil already has you in his grasp, claws sunk deep. There's no rescue now, no prayer strong enough to undo it. His tone shifted, hardening. But we will be the last, the only ones. Tonight, I end it. These pages will burn, and whatever lives inside them will answer to the fire. Burn them? I repeated, genuinely shaken. All of them? Yes, he said, his voice sinking into something weary and hollow. You can't imagine what writing them has done to me. I chased after illusions, bright, fragile things, while neglecting anything solid or lasting. I've filled my life with shadows that imitate reality just closely enough to confuse me. Little by little, they pulled me off the common road everyone else walks. He paused, staring into the fire. I live alone now, not apart from people, but among them, a stranger in crowds. No one wants what I want. No one thinks the way I think. No one feels what I feel. And all of it began with those stories. He gestured toward the manuscripts. When they are ashes, perhaps I'll return to who I was before they ever existed. Then, with a bitter shrug, he added, besides, the sacrifice is smaller than it sounds. No one would publish them anyway. Well, I said carefully, that does change the matter. They were sent out, Oberon continued, color rising to his face, frustration breaking through his composure. 17 publishers, letters to every one of them. He shook his head. You should see the replies. No, you shouldn't. I burned them the moment they arrived. One prints nothing but textbooks, another claims he already has 5 novels under consideration. I let out a short, incredulous laugh. Imagine it, the sheer mountain of unpublished literature this country must be sitting on. Oberon didn't laugh with me. His eyes had returned to the manuscripts, as if they were listening. Oh, the lost manuscripts of Alexandria? Oberon scoffed. Trifles compared to this. He waved a dismissive hand. One publisher, I'm convinced, is abandoning his entire business just to avoid the possibility of printing my book. Another offered a deal so generous it nearly made me laugh. He'd consider publishing, provided I paid half the cost up front, guaranteed the rest with legal bonds, and rewarded him with a handsome percentage whether a single copy sold or not. He paused. One even suggested subscriptions. The scoundrel, I said instinctively. It's true, Oberon replied flatly. Out of 17 publishers, only one had the decency or the curiosity to actually read the stories. His mouth tightened. A dabbler, if ever there was one. He returned them dripping with criticism, proposing what he proudly called substantial improvements. After condemning nearly every page, he concluded by assuring me quite firmly that he would never publish them under any circumstances. It might be therapeutic, I said dryly, to grab that fellow by the nose and give it a solid pull. If the entire trade shared a single nose, there would be some pleasure in that. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. Still, among the 17, there is at least one man I believe to be honest. He told me plainly that American publishers will not touch American writing.
rarely even from an established name, and never from a newcomer, unless every risk falls squarely on the author. The miserable cowards! They live off literature, yet won't risk a breath for it. Still, I hesitated, you could publish it yourself. Oberon's gaze drifted once more to the manuscripts, and this time there was something close to dread in his eyes.
And yes, I could publish them myself, Oberon said. But here's the curse of it. He pressed a hand to his stomach. They've ruined the stories for me. Every rejection, every smug reply has poisoned them. I can't even look at the pages without feeling sick, physically sick. Nausea, like something rotten in the gut. His eyes flicked toward the manuscripts on the table. I swear to you, there's a demon in them. And I won't deny it. I'm looking forward to watching them burn. The way one looks forward to revenge. The way one longs to destroy something venomous. I didn't argue much. In truth, though fond of Oberon as I was, I privately suspected his stories might shine more brightly in flames than they ever would in print. Before carrying out the sentence, we opened the bottle of champagne he had prepared to brace himself for the grim task ahead. We filled our glasses and drank deeply. The wine raced down my throat in a lively rush, sharpening my vision and lifting my spirits at once. But Oberon remained unchanged, heavy, dulled, weighed down by something no drink could touch. Slowly, he drew the manuscripts toward him. There was a strange tenderness in the gesture, mixed with revulsion, like a father lifting a child he loves and cannot bear to look at. "Enough! No nonsense! Absurd!" he muttered, holding the pages away from himself as if they might stain him. Gray once imagined heaven as a place where one reclines comfortably reading new novels forever. But tell me, what punishment could Dante invent more fitting for the author of a bad book than this? He shook the manuscripts lightly. An eternity spent rereading his own work. That torment wouldn't last, I said. A bad writer is usually his own most devoted fan. For the first time that night, Oberon laughed. But the sound faded quickly, leaving the fire crackling louder than before. "I'm missing that one trait my kind is famous for," Oberon said quietly. "The only one that might actually be useful, self-admiration." He turned the pages slowly now, no longer recoiling from them. "Look at this." His voice softened. "Memories come rushing back the moment I touch these leaves." He tapped one page gently. "This scene was born on a winding hill road one clear October night. Stars overhead, air so clean it felt sharpened. I remember walking alone, breathing it in, until I felt more spirit than body, light enough to climb the sky itself, to race along the Milky Way like it was a path meant for feet." He flipped to another page. "This one came to me in March during a long, miserable night ride. Darkness everywhere, rain, cold, the wheels rattling beneath us, voices around me fading into something unreal, like echoes inside a dream. And yet my imagination burned brighter than the world itself. What I saw inside my mind felt more solid than the road beneath us." Another page. His hand hesitated. "And this," his voice dropped, "these were the shadows I called to my bedside at midnight. I invited them, but when I ordered them away, they refused to leave." He swallowed. "Morning came, gray light through the window, and there I was, still awake, shaking with fever, trapped by spells I had cast myself." "There must have been some kind of joy in it," I said, surprised by the ache of envy that stirred in me. "There can be joy in a fever," Oberon replied, "a dangerous kind." He leaned back, staring into the fire. "And the moods, God, the moods I wrote in." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes my ideas were buried like gems underground. I had to dig for them, scrape away dirt, polish them carefully until they caught the light." Then his smile faded. "And sometimes, rarely, gloriously, thoughts poured out all at once, a clear, rushing stream bursting from dry ground like water in a desert. I could barely keep up with my pen." His fingers tightened. "But when the flow ended," he shook his head, "nothing. I chewed the pen like a fool, forced my way forward, cold and numb, as though a wall of ice had risen between me and the very thing I was trying to reach." I watched him closely. "Can you tell now," I asked, "which parts were written in that frozen state and which were born in fire?" Oberon didn't answer immediately. His eyes were on the manuscripts again, and this time they looked almost alive. "No," Oberon said suddenly, flinging the manuscripts back onto the table. "I see none of it now. No trace of that golden pen I once believed I held, the one that wrote in fire." His voice broke into bitterness. "What I thought was treasure has turned out to be fairy gold, bright in the dark, worthless in daylight." He laughed sharply. "What once looked like a masterpiece, painted in the richest colors, is nothing more than a blurred, colorless stain. I was eloquent, poetic, clever." He shook his head. "All of it nothing but nonsense, a dream that dissolves the moment you wake." Without another word, he fed the fire. Sticks, splintered wood, dry chips. The flames leapt upward, roaring until the hearth glowed like some ancient furnace built for punishment rather than warmth. Oberon grabbed the champagne bottle and drank straight from it, once, twice, 3 times, deep, reckless gulps. The alcohol, colliding with his agitation, tipped him over the edge. His restraint shattered into something wild. He seized the manuscripts. One heartbeat more and everything, every flaw, every beauty would have vanished together in that blazing judgment. And then it struck me. Lines of startling imagination, moments of genuine tenderness, thoughts I had never encountered elsewhere, a whole constellation of brilliance and failure intertwined so tightly that destroying it felt, suddenly, enormous. I grabbed his arm. "You can't mean this," I cried. "You're not truly going to burn them." "Let go of me," Oberon shouted. His eyes reflected the fire, no, matched it. "I will burn them. Every word, not a single syllable will escape." He wrenched free. "Would you condemn me to become a cursed author, to live under sneers and laughter, to endure neglect so cold it masquerades as dignity, praise offered out of pity against the conscience of the giver?" His voice rose, shaking. "To be mocked by my own thoughts, to be cast out even in death, my name trampled, my ashes scattered beneath careless feet, forgotten if I am lucky, remembered with contempt if I am not." He thrust the manuscripts toward the fire. "No, into the fire with them. May my hand rot before it ever dares to write another word." The flames roared higher, and for a terrible instant it seemed the fire was waiting. The act was done. Oberon had thrown the manuscripts into the heart of the fire. At first, the flames seemed to recoil, hesitant, almost shy, but soon they twisted around the pages, swallowing them and merging with their essence, bright, uncontainable, alive. Oberon stood frozen, eyes wide, captivated. Then he began to speak aloud, his voice wild and uneven, as though some rebellion of imagination had erupted the moment he dared to sacrifice it. In the fire, he seemed to see everything he had ever dreamed. Perhaps it was the magic he had woven into the pages, made visible in the dying blaze, visions brightening for a fleeting heartbeat before vanishing into smoke. The flickering coals and towering flames painted a shifting landscape, a city in flames, forests turned to fire, lakes boiling, mountains erupting, skies ignited in a blood-red glow. "They burn," he whispered, trembling, as though steeped in the purest spirit of genius. "See there, my lovers, clasped together in the heat of passion, and there the villain writhing in torment eternal. My saints, my angelic women stand as martyrs, their eyes lifted heavenward. Ring the bells, let the city blaze. Destruction rolls across the forests, the waters, the mountains, all consumed in one universal flame. Ha! The fiend!" His last word made me shiver. The manuscripts, nearly gone, suddenly flared once more, a broad, laughing sheet of fire that danced across the room. Shadows leapt and twisted on the walls, the ceiling, the floor. The flames roared up the chimney like a living creature, and for a moment the room itself seemed caught in the same ecstatic, terrifying brilliance. It was a blaze of creation and annihilation all at once. Oberon's fury, his genius, his despair, and his visions gone in smoke and flame, leaving nothing behind but a wild memory, a story that lived only in the fire. "You saw him! You must have seen him!" Oberon cried, his voice trembling. "In that last sheet of flame, there he was, the villain I imagined, staring and laughing just as I conceived him. And now the tales are gone." Indeed, the manuscripts were no more than a scattered heap of blackened cinders. Sparks flickered chaotically among them, white streaks marking the final traces of the pen. The ash danced with every gust of air, fragile and fleeting. Oberon knelt beside the pile, staring into the remnants as though seeking one last miracle. "What is stronger than fire?" he murmured, his tone heavy with sorrow. "Not even thought, subtle, invisible, incorporeal, can escape it. In this short span, fire has erased the creations of countless nights and days, creations I can never summon again, never restore in the brilliance and freshness they once held. And more than that," his hand swept over the ashes, "the unborn children of my imagination, everything I dreamed, everything I had planned for the future, they are all gone, reduced to this single lifeless heap of embers. Fate decreed this act, and now what remains? Only a weary, aimless life, a life destined to regret this hour, and at last an obscure grave where even the memory of me will fade into nothing." As he finished, the faint, dying embers rose again and fell, flaring one last time before shooting up the chimney like a demon with sable wings. And then, outside, the night was shattered by a single piercing cry. "Fire!" The shout multiplied. Others joined in, voices rising in a frantic chorus until the word became a roar carried through the streets. Oberon leapt to his feet, eyes wide with renewed excitement. The fire he had unleashed on paper seemed now to reach beyond the room, beyond him, into the world itself. And for a moment it felt as though the imagination he had sacrificed had come alive, demanding attention, demanding awe, demanding to be remembered. "A fire on a night like this," Oberon cried, "with wind howling like a living thing. Wherever the flames are carried, rooftops will ignite like powder. The pumps will be useless, frozen solid. Even boiling water would turn to ice before it hit the ground. In an hour, this entire wooden town will be one vast inferno." He stopped himself abruptly. What a magnificent subject for my next... No, enough.
The street below had erupted into chaos. Footsteps pounded in every direction. Voices collided in panic and urgency. One fire engine thundered around the corner, another clattered closer from a distant street, iron wheels hammering the frozen pavement. Then the bells began, 3 steeples at once, ringing with a frantic, metallic fury that carried the alarm far beyond the town itself. Their sound was wild, broken, terrified. If bells could speak, they would have been shouting a single word over and over: "Fire! Fire! Fire!" "How eloquent those iron tongues are!" Oberon exclaimed. "My heart shakes, but not with fear." He pressed his hand to his chest, almost laughing. "And listen to that sound, the roar of the crowd below, deep, tremendous, like some monstrous organ shaking the earth itself." He spun toward me, eyes blazing. "Come, we're wasting time. I'll cry out louder than all of them. I'll throw myself into the heart of the confusion, become nothing but foam atop the ferment." From the very first cry, dread had whispered the truth to me. Now it was undeniable. The building trembled with uproar, above us, below us, all around. Feet thundered up the public staircase, fists hammered at doors. Water hissed and crashed from the engines outside. Furniture was hurled into the street, shattering on the frozen ground. The air itself seemed to fracture with noise. And then, suddenly, it struck him. The realization hit Oberon like lightning. His madness flared not into terror, but into rapture. With a cry of wild exultation, he leapt upward, nearly striking the ceiling. "My tales!" he shouted. "The chimney! The roof!" His laughter rang sharp and unrestrained. "The fiend has escaped into the night. He's awakened thousands, torn them from their beds with fear and wonder." He spread his arms wide. "And here I stand, a triumphant author." "Huzzah!" he cried. "Huzzah! My imagination has set the town on fire. My brain has done this. Huzzah!" The flames roared somewhere above us, and the town answered.
And thus the story ended. If you liked this journey into the worlds of classic literature, do not forget to support us by subscribing so we can tell you more. And hey, if there's a classic tale you'd love to hear told in this suspenseful style, drop its name in the comments below. Your suggestion might be our next chilling adventure.